Hi, welcome to Moves That Matter. I am your host, Dr. Clyde Posley, and I am delighted to see you out there again, once again, having tuned in. I appreciate your viewership, and let me reiterate, I appreciate how you guys have been caused our numbers to increase. We're getting viewership from across the country. I get Instagram and Twitter about, people even as far as Switzerland who are tuning in to our show. So God bless you and thank you so much. I've said before, I want to say it again, the currency at this point for our exchange watching the show is that you would hit share. I'm asking you to hit share today. I have an empowering show today. I have a guest with me that is going to show us that he is an example of what restoration can be in the lives of people, and in particular in the lives of men. Recently, our ministry has birthed a new expression of men's ministry. It's called Kingdom Men's Restoration Ministry, Kingdom Men Restoration Ministry, KMRM. And me and Brother Eric Simmons are on a roll. We are working food pantries. We are helping black men, African-American men, Latino men, Caucasian men, brothers who've been on drugs, brothers who are in crisis, outdoors, homeless. It's already working. And today we have a brother, he's not homeless, but he has a powerful testimony to show you what God can do in the lives of people who trust him. You do not want to miss this coming up segment. I also want to remind you about my book, More Than Icons and Images, Uncovering the Hidden Protest Narrative of the African-American Athlete in the 21st Century. It is the political statement of athletes, and the impact of athletes is monumental. We see that in the tragic death of Mr. Kobe Bryant and his beautiful daughter, Gianna, also known as Gigi. What powerful impact Kobe has made on our country, on our world, and on the notion of what it means to be prepared for competition. We'll talk more about that another time. But in just a moment, we'll come back with our guest and get into this powerful show about the power of restoration. You don't want to miss this. I'll be right back. Hi, I'm back, and once again, welcome to Moves That Matter. I'm your host, Dr. Clyde Posley, Jr. I promised you a fantastic guest, and if I have to say so myself, God has blessed us to have some tremendous guests on our show already this year. Today we have with us one of my greatest friends, one of my best friends in the city. He is Alphonso Wright, the owner and operator of Al's Modern Clothing and Shoes here in Indianapolis in the Castleton area. Mr. Wright? Glad to have you.
Thanks a lot, Pastor Paul.
Glad to have you here. I've been hoping to get you here for some time. You're going to discover today that Al is more than a successful business owner. He's more than a splendiferously clad, handsome brother. He's also has a powerful testimony that he's going to share with us today, and he has steps and a story behind what has led him to be in a position where God can trust him with what you see before you today. So once again, man, I'm glad to have you with us today.
Thank you.
And just if you don't mind, just take a moment and just kind of talk to the audience and, introduce yourself to people who may not know about Alphonso Wright and Al's Modern Clothing and Shoes here in the city.
Hello, everyone. Like I said, I'm Alphonso Wright. I've been in business here now. I just opened back up in October of 2018. But I previously had a store here in Indianapolis for 17 years, and I closed that store in 2011 due to the economy.
Right.
So I was blessed to be able to open back up.
Yours wasn't the only store that was hit back then.
That right. 2008 kind of hit me pretty hard, and I held on. But I just after 2011 I had to close, and but now I'm back.
That's right. We're glad to have you. And I want to jump right into this, your story, and so you can help some young brother, some sister out there who knows, who can learn today about the power of redemption, the power of restoration. Basically what we're talking about today for our viewing audience is the power of restoration and how the hand of God works to restore us from any place. I've discovered, just very quickly, and you probably can concur here, that there are most people who have a success story that can be a blessing to the masses have a moment where it didn't look anything like it ends up looking later on.
Oh, yes.
Most people.
Yes.
From Oprah, Kobe.
Yes.
Several people. Michael Jordan cut from the basketball team in high school.
Yes.
And so there's a thread through the successes that happens when God is involved.
Yes.
That often they rise out of something.
Yes.
And that gives them a courage to know that they can accomplish whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to take a moment, if you would, to just share with us, look into the camera if you would, and just talk to us about, how Al's Modern Clothing and Shoes came to be.
Al's Modern Clothing and Shoes came to be. Actually, it was my dad started the business in 1969.
Oh, okay.
And it was called Players Modern Clothing.
Okay.
And he told me as a kid, he says, out of 8 kids, he says, you're the one that's going to run the family business one day. And so I just, okay, but I didn't think much of it, you know what I mean? So, but when I got to be in high school, out of the 8 kids, he made me go to a private school and sent everybody else went to a public school. And I was like, well, Dad, how come I can't go to the public school? That's where all my friends were at that I knew. And he says, because like I told you, you're going to run the family business one day, so you need to go over here because I want you to
right. He had his reason.
He had exactly,
Right.
And so I was very upset about it. But when I look back, I'm glad.
He knew exactly what he
I'm
was
glad
doing.
he did it, and he told me to go to school and get a degree, and he would help me get a store, and that's how I got started. Yeah.
And so, you said 17 years, so your father taught you the business, how did you end up, becoming, able to run the family business?
Well, like I said, I've been around since I was 3 years old. So
around the
not
business?
the business. It started in 1969.
Okay. So you were working with him as soon as you
I was working right. That's all.
Okay.
That's all I really
Okay.
know. And my other brothers actually worked there as well, and my sister. So we all kind of worked in the store. And I got 2 other brothers that actually worked in the store more than what I did. I was playing sports. I played basketball and all that. But so I would sometimes try to even avoid going down the street that our store was on, because I knew I was going to go in and work. When you work with my dad, you're gonna work all day. His work ethic was just that.
Well, that's good. So talk to us about obviously Al's Modern Clothing and Shoes is a successful business. It is known around the Midwest. People come, and this is not just me talking, people come into Indianapolis. I know a lot of brothers that come into Indianapolis to come to Al's Modern Clothing and Shoes. But often people see this side.
Right.
Talk to us about what some of the obstacles were to becoming the great clothing and shoe store that it became.
A lot of times in life, what I've realized is that as an adult, I don't care what you're doing, you're going to have obstacles.
That's right.
I don't care. You're going to have obstacles as a parent.
Right.
You're going to have obstacles when you're in school. Whatever it is that you're doing as a pastor, there's still going to be obstacles. But it's what are you going to do
Challenges.
with those obstacles and those challenges? And what I've learned from reading a book by Napoleon Hill is that, and he said this, and it just stuck with me. In every failure, there's a seed of an equivalent or greater benefit.
Oh yeah.
And so that's how I look at. So when I look at that obstacle, in every failure, there's a seed of an equivalent or greater benefit.
What do you want to explain to our audience? What do you mean by that? What you mean
so
by that?
when you take that something may seem like it's a failure or this obstacle that comes into your life, when that happens, Pastor, you can literally take that and listen. And when you go by what he said, in every failure, there's a seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. So when you're going through this trying time, you can use that as energy and fuel.
That's right.
And take that negative and actually make it a positive.
That's right. If you survive it, you can take it and
make it a positive. Because that's what it's all about. That's just life. When you take a kid and throw him a football, and that kid drops the ball, he's not a failure. He drops it, but guess what? Eventually, he's going to catch it. But if you never threw the ball at him, he would have never learned how to catch. But when you have to learn. So when he first start off, so sometimes failure, you can use it and just use it. It's just learning. It's just life. You go through things, and when you go through them, you just got to find that silver lining for yourself, and then just work towards your goal and have faith and put the work in, and everything will work itself out.
That's one of the issues that a lot of our brothers, young men, young women face today is that very notion, believing that there's any good in any painful situation. And there's always something that can be used from that.
Yes.
There has to be.
Always.
There has to be. And that's I really appreciate you saying that.
Well, Pastor, let me say, think about it. When 9/11 hit,
right,
that was a really bad situation. Over a few thousand people were actually killed, because of due to 9/11.
Right.
But when 9/11 hit, as bad as that was, look at how the country at that time, how we actually became closer. Blacks and whites were working together, doing things, unifying, and not just blacks and whites, but across the board. Everybody was in that moment. Sad to say, what happened to Kobe just a few days ago
has brought people together.
It's brought people together.
Didn't even know they had Kobe in common.
Look, how many men are reaching out to their families now?
That's right.
You know what I mean? Now, it's really bad. That situation is so sad. It's just, I sit back and think about it, his daughter, him, and the other 7 people that was on board. But that, as bad as it was, it's got millions of people across the world that actually are changing the way they do things. But a lot of times, though, when that happens, what we have to do, see, when you run into obstacle personally, when that happens, see, the 9/11, Kobe, people are doing stuff, it might last 2 weeks, a month, maybe a month and a half. But see, when it's personal, you have to keep on going. You can't stop. You have to keep going, keep going, keep going. You can't say, 2 weeks, I'm going to do this and work hard, then I'm going to stop. No. And that's what I loved about Kobe. He didn't quit.
That's right.
You know what I mean? He never gave up. And no matter what, that's what he always continued to do. And so when things are personal, that you have a personal obstacle or something that comes about that may seem like a failure, then you just have to take that notion that I'm going to pursue, and keep going forward no matter what.
That's right. And that's kind of a good segue into something else I want to discuss with you. You never know. And this is something that we didn't even kind of prepare to talk about. I just want to, something that you just brought up made me think of this, Al. We all should live our lives as though we have impact to make.
Yes.
That we are being used.
Yes.
I know, I've read this in a book, Miles Monroe wrote a book about purpose.
Yes.
And one of the things he was saying, and a pastor friend of mine, Julius Stevens, has brought this up, and he has said this before as well, that all of us are problem solvers.
Yes.
That we exist, that the actual reason that we are on earth is to solve problems. You are paid to solve problems. Your favor in the world will be about you solving problems.
Right.
Or your people's disdain for you ultimately will be because you create a problem in their mind. And so who would have thought that Kobe Bryant, the basketball player, and later Academy Award winner, and great father, we came to learn, would have been making this kind of impact? I didn't know that he was calling players, that he was calling football players, that he was calling baseball players, soccer players, empowering these people. I did not know about his interview where he said that what got him through this situation that happened in Denver, where he was accused of rape and the young lady came back and recanted and they were settling out of court, was that he had talked to his priest throughout this entire 1.5 year ordeal. He'd been talking to his priest, and his faith in God and Christ was really developed. He was raised Catholic and always believed in Christ, but that moment, you never know the impact you're going to make. You never know. You never know. You never know. You never know who you are blessing and how your lifestyle. So we need to make sure that we always are trying to find a way, in my mind at least, to be impactful.
Yes, and I think we can be impactful when we realize the gift that God has blessed us with. But most people, I'm not going to say most people, sometimes people just don't really pursue their gift. They say, people talk about where's the richest place in the world. You talk about the gold and the diamonds in Africa. But that's not the richest place in the world, is the graveyards.
That's right.
So many people still have their music in them. They died with their music in them and just didn't live out certain things. You know what I mean? And they let other obstacles get in their way instead of just realizing what their gift is and then going for it. But so what you got to do is put God first.
Right.
And when you put God first, everything will work itself out. And then you have to work on yourself.
That's right.
So you work on a job, you earn a living. You work on yourself, you earn a fortune.
That's right.
And the fortune doesn't always have to. You work on a job, you earn a living. You work on yourself, you earn a fortune.
One more time for my audience. I want them to grab
You work on a job, you earn a living. You work on yourself, you earn a fortune.
That's
and
right.
the fortune isn't always money.
That's right.
See, the fortune that Kobe has left because of how he worked on himself as an individual is even with him passing away. It's the look at how
his riches will abound forever.
Abound forever. And it ain't about no money. It's about just people being better people.
That's right.
And so when you work on being better yourself, your impact would be better for someone else.
You know, one of the ways that that you help people to work on themselves, among the many ways, because you're a child of God, you're a believer.
Yes.
I've always known you to be a believer.
Right.
One of the ways you particularly work on people to be better, feel better about themselves, is how they look.
Yes.
And how they dress.
Yes.
What does that do for a person's image?
And how
they feel about themselves?
Well, it's when it comes to dressing, and especially if you're going to somewhere important, job interview, work, things that are very important. You only get one time to make a first impression when you first get there.
That's right.
And that first impression can go a long way. But it's just, and plus too, it's the way you feel. See, if you feel better, you do better.
That's
so
right.
if you put yourself in a position where you can feel better. Now, you don't have to always dress really nice to feel better. Prime example, Mark Zuckerberg.
That's true.
You know, he'll put on a T-shirt. Now, he can, but if he
Right.
wanted. But that's just, so it really is just about you.
Right.
What makes you feel comfortable? It's with all the money he has, what makes him feel comfortable is to go into the closet and he have all these great T-shirts and his jeans. That's good for him. So if that's what's good for you, then so be it. So what I've learned is when customers come into my store, it's not about what I think they should wear or how I think they should look. But when they come to my store, obviously they got certain things that they're probably looking for that I may have, but I'm gonna talk to them to see where they're at so I can make them feel good on how they want to look. So when they look in the mirror, I ask them, how do you feel about what you have on? What do you think about that? How do you think that color looks on you? And I'll see what they have to say, and then I'll also ask, would you like for my opinion? And I'll give my opinion on it as well.
I was interested. I was thinking about the whole Mark Zuckerberg analogy. You know, it's interesting about those T-shirts. It's amazing how. But when he came before Congress,
Yes.
When you saw him, he didn't have on a T-shirt.
No, exactly. So there's a time you go get
right.
married. You don't.
That's right.
You know what I mean. So it's gonna be. That's why I've always asked people when they come, what's the occasion?
That's right.
You know what's going on, what you're gonna do.
Where are you going that you want to? How do you want to
Exactly.
look when you're there?
Right.
That's right.
Right.
That's very good. So listen, you know, if you would, you know, I want you to, you know, kind of talk to us about how you came to Christ, how you came to know Christ.
How I came to really know
How
Christ.
you came to right, not just go to church.
Yeah.
How did you meet Christ? Knowing Christ is something that anybody that knows Al. I don't care what capacity you know him. You know he loves the Lord.
Oh,
He's
yes.
He's not going to talk to you 2 or 3 minutes without bringing up the Lord.
That's right. That's
so,
right.
you know, how did you get to a place where you are with God?
Well, back in college, and a lot of people don't know this about me, so this is going to be a shock to a lot of people. In college, I made one bad decision, very bad. Tried to sell drugs one time, but because of the amount, it actually landed me in penitentiary. I was incarcerated in Terre Haute and everything, and when I was incarcerated there, I got baptized. That's where I got to know the Lord. They say always call me like a little choir boy inside there because I would hang out at the chapel, and I just made a promise to myself when I was there that, and it was like 2.5 years that I was there, and I made a promise to myself that when I get out of here, I'm not going to be like that person that comes in, say they get to know God, and get out and doing all these crazy things. I said, no, I'm not going to be that person. So I
said that while you were
I said that while I was in there.
After
Yes.
really meeting the Lord.
Yes, after really meeting the Lord. And I also said when I was in there that now I was from Pure, Illinois. But I also
You and Richard Pryor.
But I also said actually I was born in Mississippi, but I lived in Illinois pretty much all my life.
Okay.
But it's just when you're going through things in life and things seem like it's just not going to work for you, and you put God first, it always works out. And so I've started putting God first for real. And when I started doing it, that's when I wrote in a book. It's called Total Self-Confidence. And in this book, it literally has a place where you can write and say things you want to do. I wrote in this book while I was locked up. I'm going to have a clothing store. It's going to be called Players Modern Clothing. It's going to be in the Indianapolis area. Now, I didn't live in Indianapolis. I was in Terre Haute. You see what I'm saying? And that's how God works. Even though what I did it. I'm not saying God put me there. No, I did what I did to end up where I was at. But I had 2 other co-defendants. And one of them went to Leavenworth, Kansas, and the other one went to a penitentiary in Georgia. They sent me to Terre Haute. my dad used to say years ago that he would like to have a store in the Indianapolis area. And so with me going to Terre Haute, I literally got to come to Indianapolis on furloughs because of nonviolent crime. I was just at the camp and come here and speak. So I stayed at Senator Les Duval's home back in the day.
Wow.
Yeah. So because I would speak at all these different churches here in town, talk to these kids and tell them, you know, I was the president of my fraternity, on the basketball team, and then trying to sell drugs one time just because I was trying to make a couple $1,000 and was saying, I'm not going to ever do this again, all this other type of stuff, but still just one time, it's still one time too many.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So, and I've learned, and, you know, and that's all behind me now, but I always called a blessing in disguise, because that's where I actually found God. And if it was going to take me to go there to truly find God, hey, so be it.
Oh, my goodness. What a powerful testimony. What a powerful testimony. I hope someone who is listening to me, who has a son or a daughter, who you know to be smarter than the behavior that they displayed in a given moment, is watching what this man of God is saying. He is telling you, and I think probably for the first time ever publicly that this happened to him, and he's took responsibility for it then. He's taking responsibility for it now. But what's most important is not what happened. What's most important is not what happened then. It's what he did from it. It's the seed.
Right.
He talked about.
Yes.
It's the seed of in that, because actually it wasn't a failure.
No.
Actually, it wasn't a failure. No. Everything that he is today, dressed here, handsome and sharp, was born or perpetuated through that event.
But you know what? I had heard a story one time, and this kind of is how I look at it. Sometimes God just needs to get your attention. You know, and the story goes where this man, he had a donkey, and this donkey, and we know how stubborn a donkey can be.
Yes,
all right?
Sir.
But he could tell that donkey to sit. That donkey would sit. Tell the donkey roll over, roll over. And he was like, how in the world you get this donkey to do all this?
Right.
And he was like, you see this black rubber bat I got right here? I'd have hit him across his head with this thing so many times to get his attention and tell him to do what I want him to do. Now I don't have to use it anymore because I did what I had to do to get his attention.
Right.
And so when I was locked up, God got my attention because, like I said, I got baptized. You know, I got closer to him. I realized just how important he was. The dream I'm living now would have my own business. I said that I was actually going to go ahead.
Successful business.
Yes, and my dad he helped me to get started. He told me back in the day, this is what I'm gonna help you do. You know, but I'm just saying, but when I was there, he used to say that, but when I was there, that's when I made my mind up, this is what I'm gonna have to do. You know, I don't have no choice now because the dreams that I've had of me wanting to be an attorney, it was going to be really difficult, the red tape. Not to say that couldn't have happened, but all the things I was going to have to go through, I said, you know what? Now I got to do what my dad was saying. He was saying that I was destined to do, is have my own business.
Right.
And so I
still
started.
able to do that if you want to.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, I took the LSAT myself. I'm not ruling out.
Yeah. Right.
I'm a life learner.
Right. Exactly. Well, I don't rule out anything. Anything that God has for me, that's just what I'm going to go for.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I realized the gift that I have when it comes to fashion, and I love doing it. So if you could find something that you love to do, you're going to be successful. Everything else is just going to fall into place.
That's really what we're here for.
Yes.
You know, that's a powerful statement, Al. You know, one of the things that I want to get over to the audience today is if you're looking for your purpose, you need to find your passion. If you're really looking for what you're here to do, find out what it is that you actually love to do.
Yes.
You know, I have a daughter who's a makeup artist, and when she was a kid, she used to play in makeup and paint and different stuff like that. And I remember saying to her, it's my job to train you up as a child, so when you're older, you won't depart from that.
Exactly.
If that's what you love to do, baby, we're gonna find out a way for you to do it. And now, she does makeup for those who are part of homegoing celebrations. She does makeup for people across the country. And I bring that up because the truth of the matter is she loves doing it.
Yes.
And the money follows.
Exactly.
If you find out what you love to do, the money will chase you.
It's a byproduct of it. And that's one thing I think as parents we have to do. Now, I had a son at a very young age. My oldest son he'll be 36 in June.
Okay.
And I was in high school. All right. But because of me playing basketball, I had him dribbling the ball, doing all this stuff, thinking he's gonna be the next Michael Jordan, you know. And then so when he got to be an adult, he told me, he says, Dad, I didn't really want to do that all the time the way that you was pushing me, and you kind of made me not like it as much because I was trying to live my dream through him.
Right.
So then I had my second son, who's 17 years old, and I didn't do that with him. You know, I just let him be who he wants to be, and he wants to be a pilot. And like you were saying with your daughter, so you find out what your children want to be, and then water that seed. Because that's what they like, because everybody don't like the same thing. We're all different. There's no two sets of same fingerprints. Exactly. Right. So nobody's the same. So just because they're your child and you like something,
that's right,
that doesn't mean that your child is going to like everything that you like. You got to go ahead and water the seed and help them to do whatever it is that they enjoy doing, not what it is that you want to do.
That's powerful. Listen, there is so much more that we're going to talk about. So what I'm going to have to ask you to do is will you come back?
Oh, yes, no problem.
All right, let's come back.
Okay.
We'll do another show for next week. Listen, I want you to take these last few minutes that we have, and I want you to kind of look into the camera and talk to some young person, some person listening and watching us, and answer this question. Where can they start on their dream?
Well, you can start on your dream. First of all, I'm going to tell you, you got to get God in your life. You know, you have to do that. And like I said, and then work on yourself. And then some of you may say, Al, you could get started with the business because your dad had a business. And that's true. I was blessed with that. But you know what, though? I'm going to tell you something. You can have mentors. You got uncles. You got cousins. There's so many other different people that you could work for that may have their own business that you may know. And if you go and work with them, and especially for something you enjoy doing, and you go and work with them, that's going to put you in a position to where you learning enough to where you could eventually may even have your own. And that uncle, that mentor, whatever, they may be the one that bless you or say, okay, now you got 10 or 15% stock in our company. And then you can take that and take that company and try to take it to a whole nother level. When my dad got me started, and I felt like I needed to go to another level, what happened was when I lost the store, I went to go work at Back Racks. And when me going to work at Back Racks, that was really like a culture shock for me. For the simple fact I love working around clothes. But the reason I said it was such a shock, because they was only paying me $8 an hour when I started. Now that's going from having your own business to go work for somebody for $8 an hour. But, and I'll say this now, I chose to go there because I was like, they're not going to try to check my record to see what I've done over 30 years ago. But still mentally, that still was kind of a block.
Right.
You know, so what I'm saying is that you just got to put yourself in the environment and surround yourself around people that's doing what you're doing.
Who know how to do that.
Who know how to do it, and I'm telling you.
And the Bible says in
you'll
Hebrews
be
6 and 12, follow those who through faith and patience have inherited the promise.
Yes.
Don't be slothful, it starts off by saying.
And also the Bible says in Hebrews 11, chapter 1, faith is the substance of things hoped for and evidence of things not seen. So you got to have faith in what it is that you're doing, and then you got to work towards that. And if you work towards that and have faith and you walk in that direction, eventually it'll happen. It'll happen. You don't try to figure out how or why. You know, I don't know how I sat in my mama's womb for 9 months and didn't drown. I don't know how the stars sits up in the sockets in the skies and don't come down here and bombard us like centipedes. I don't understand all this. I don't know how we can drop a feather and a hammer on the moon and you can drop and they're going to land at the same time. But here on Earth, you can do that same thing and the hammer's going to drop a lot faster. But gravity is here and it's there. But the God we serve owns and controls everything. And when you put him first, don't worry about how, he'll make a way. I didn't know that I would have a store as nice as I have right now, Pastor. I knew I was going to get another store eventually. How, I don't know. I was only making $8 an hour. You know, but it's kind of like when Joseph was in the dungeon. You know what I mean? All the things he had to go through and everything else. But had he not gone through that, interpreting the dreams and all these other type of things, he would have never got to the place where he was second in command.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So sometimes you're going through things and you're sitting back like me going through things, and I went and worked at Back Racks, the things that I learned from them. My dad, you know, he couldn't teach me those things, something he just didn't know. Well, this company's been around since 1877.
Right.
You know, and they went out of business. And when they went out of business, I was fortunate enough to where I was able to buy all their fixtures at a very...
Back Racks.
Exactly. And it just happened. They was closing 2 months before I was going to open up my new business. But see, that's how things work. But I thought me going to Back Racks because this is a place where, you know, the people... When me going to work at Back Racks, I felt like almost kind of like, man, is this me going backwards? $8 an hour. But actually, I was moving forward.
Right there. The $8 an hour is where some people are going to get hung up, but we're going to fix them next week. We're going to fix them next week. Listen, I want to thank you for being here this week, my brother. We're gonna find a way to get you back next week. And listen, there is so much more that me and Mr. Wright, Al from Al's Modern Clothing and Shoes, have to discuss. So much so, we're going to be back next week. Let me close the show by telling you, first of all, thank Mr. Alphonso Wright for being here. But let me remind you all of something. In this life, you are constantly making moves, whether you want to or not. And sometimes some of the moves that come upon us, we are not always prepared for. But since we all have to make moves, why don't you make your moves that matter? I am your host, Dr. Clyde Posley Jr., a visual voice to a new generation. Thank you for tuning in to the Moves That Matter show. We will be right back at you next week, Tuesday at 7:30. Remember, you can get my book, More Than Icons and Images, on Amazon.com, on my website, Dr. Clyde Posley. Whatever the case, let's connect. There's power in agreement and there's power in partnership. I will see you next Tuesday. God bless you. Bye-bye.